Hi guys, it's me, Chaser HD, and welcome to the 4th episode of This Week in F1 Live. Hopefully you guys are doing well in Europe or the UK or in Australia, North America, wherever you are in the world. Hopefully you're doing okay on this Sunday afternoon here in the UK. We have plenty to talk about today. Probably more to talk about than we have had, I'd say, in the last couple This Week in F1 episodes. We have some stuff about Lewis Hamilton, the guy on screen, Max Verstappen, some news about Marcus Ericsson, possible new Grand Prix for 2020. We do have quite a lot to get into in this episode. Again, hopefully you guys are doing well. And I think it's best we just go straight into the news. First off, we are going to go into not Romain Grosjean specifically, but Haas, and that they've lost their appeal for the disqualification from the Italian Grand Prix, where they were disqualified for an illegal flaw after Renault put in a protest after the Italian Grand Prix after Romain Grosjean finished in P6. So Haas lost 8 points from that Grand Prix, appealed it, but on, I think it was Thursday or Friday, that appeal was rejected and Haas have lost out on those points. And this is what Gunther Steiner, the team principal, had to say after this decision. We are obviously disappointed not to have won our appeal. We simply move forward and look to the final 2 races of the year to continue to fight on track, earn more points and conclude our strongest season to date in Formula 1. We have to remember that as well. This has been Haas's best year so far in the sport. Quite hard to remember that, because it kind of feels like this year has been slightly disappointing because they definitely had the pace to finish 4th in the Constructors' Championship. But yeah, there you go. Haas losing out on their appeal. To be honest, it's not really a surprise. Haas were warned about this at the Hungarian Grand Prix, I believe. The FIA, I believe, came to Haas and basically said, your flaw does not comply with our regulations, and basically gave them a heads up, saying, make sure you change this by the Belgian Grand Prix after the summer break, and we won't give you a penalty or disqualify you from, a race result. And Haas, I think, said that they can't do so until Singapore, because the manufacturer that makes it just can't do it in time until Singapore. So, yes, you could say it's a bit harsh, but at the end of the day, Haas were warned well in advance, almost or just over a month in advance. Haas were warned about this, and they did not take that advice. They should have got it replaced in the summer break with the flaw that was brought after they were disqualified at Monza. They should have took that warning seriously instead of running the races at Spa and Monza with what was an illegal flaw. So I think for Haas, I don't think they can really get too emotional about this, to be honest, because again, they were warned, and well, if the people making the rules warn you that you're going to be penalised if you don't comply, you have to comply. You just have to. So, not good there from Haas. But guys, what do you think about this this appeal being rejected for their disqualification for the Italian Grand Prix? Do you think, like me, that it's no real surprising that Haas kind of deserved it, because again, they just didn't take the advice from the FIA to change the flaw in time? Or do you think that Haas still should not have been disqualified from the race in Italy? Put in the chat right now, and I will read out your comment or answer your question about this. Let's take a look. Connor Chapman, hello to him, and hello to, I think it's Ray Dan as well. And yes, Nathan, it has just started. Connor Chapman asks, is this Haas's fault or Delara's? I think he's said in the chat there. I don't think it's quite Haas's fault, because Haas said apparently, I'm just trying to remember the quote because I remember when the story came out after the Italian Grand Prix. Apparently Haas said that they can't get it changed until Singapore because their manufacturer just can't do it in time. So I think it might be, yeah, it might be Dalara's fault, to be honest. Hello to Gina. Hello to Halam899. Hello to Efron, who is joining the live stream. Great to see you all. Last time I streamed was on Monday, so yeah, good to see you all. Let me just look at some comments. Ronan Brady, I think they should be fined for wasting money on the hearing of this appeal. I wouldn't go that. I wouldn't go too deep like that. I can understand why you would do that because, again, they were warned and they just didn't take that advice. I understand why you would say that, but I would just, to be honest, leave it at what it's, you know, leave this appeal where it's gone. Let's go to Rear D. Says, to be honest, I think they deserved it with this illegal flaw, plus the drivers having problems with the FIA this season. Yeah, I think you'd have to say they deserve it again because they had a warning well in advance, over a month, so they should have got it changed to avoid a penalty. Yet Ronan Brady says they were told in Hungary not to run it, and they ran it in Hungary and Spa and Monza. So how are you going to run something that's illegal and get all, you know, up in arms about your cars being disqualified? It's no real surprise, to be honest. Tonka Toy Truck, I think Haas should have been given more time to fix this flaw. It was during the summer break. But again, they were told at Hungary, which was the end of July, and it was, I think, what, almost a month and a half later, they were disqualified. That's plenty of time for an F1 team to at least make enough of a modification to the floor to make it legal. And, you know, they had a summer break. I know the teams can't, they can't, work in the summer break because that's part of the rules, but that is enough time to just make a small enough modification to make sure it's legal. So I don't think there's quite enough of an excuse here for Haas. RD, could they have just used the old floor before they upgraded to that one? Yeah, that would have been a logical thing to do. But I guess they didn't think the FIA would disqualify them from a race. I think that's maybe what they were thinking. Warwick Ball, is Charlie Whiting really the best person to be race director anymore, or is there no one else good enough? There's just no one else good enough. Charlie Whiting has been the race director for so long, I can't even remember when he actually started in that role. I think it was in the 90s. I can't remember exactly. But I think it was in the 90s somewhere, maybe mid 1990s. And there's no one better than him. If he's capable of doing that job, he's going to do that job. Simple as. Because again, there's no one really as good or better. It's sad for the drivers. They have no blame and lose points. It is sad for the drivers, but again, their team made a mistake. Ronan Brady, Laurent Marquis was the man to take over before he went to Ferrari. He was in the pipeline, but as you said, went to Ferrari. Hello to Niblo. Great to see him along after yesterday's, I think, controversial podcast. We'll leave it at that. Let me just make sure I haven't missed any comments from any of you guys. Great to see you along. And by the way, I think we have the most people watching live for this week in F1. So thank you very much for coming along. Don't worry, I have plenty more stories to come up during this stream. I don't think I can see, and hello to Reza. I don't think I can see any more comments, so I think I will move on now to the next story, which is Marcus Ericsson is heading to IndyCar for 2019. He is going to be, I believe, some kind of development driver for Sauber or promotional person for Alfa Romeo and Sauber in 2019, but has decided to go to IndyCar for 2019 to continue racing, and as he said when he made this move, to get racing towards the front of the field in a racing series again, because he hasn't been doing that since he entered into F1. But I'd have to say, I wouldn't be surprised if Marcus Ericsson did well in IndyCar, because I think he is quite a good driver. And I'll just bring up his stats here. Now, I know his stats aren't that impressive. You can see their best race result of 8th. That was his first race for Sauber. That was Australia 2015. He's only had 18 points in his career, and he's done, how many seasons? 5 seasons in F1. 95 races, so is a bit experienced, and has had 6 points finishes in 2018. I think 2018 has been Marcus's best year in F1 for sure. I definitely think so. And I still think, guys, that Marcus should be in F1 for 2019. I think Marcus has done enough to be alongside Kimi Räikkönen at Sauber for 2019. But of course, they want Giovinazzi in the car because Ferrari just want Giovinazzi to get a chance to see what he can do in a full season. So we'll see what Giovinazzi can do. But I think Ericsson is the better driver. And I think Ericsson, again, did deserve to keep his seat, honestly. But with Marcus Ericsson, what can he do in IndyCar? Now, when it comes to the championship, I think top 5 is realistic in the IndyCar championship. Can he win it? Probably not, to be honest, because I think Ericsson, he just won't have the experience of, say, driving those cars, and I don't think he is massively better than, all of the drivers in IndyCar. I think he's about at the same level, to be honest, as those drivers. So it's going to take time for him to get used to those cars, and if he gets a bad start to his IndyCar season, then that's obviously not going to help. But if Ericsson does get to grips with just how those cars work, because they do just handle differently, a lot differently to F1 cars, if he gets to grips with that and starts the season well, I wouldn't be surprised if Ericsson won the IndyCar title, because at his best, he can be that good. So don't be surprised if Ericsson has a good IndyCar season next season. But guys, what do you think about Marcus Ericsson going to IndyCar? Do you think he will win the IndyCar title? Do you think he'll maybe not do that well? Say finish 5th or 6th in the championship? And when it comes to 2019, do you think, like me, that Marcus does deserve to be in F1 for 2019 ahead of Giovinazzi at Sauber? Or do you think he deserves to be kicked out for Antonio Giovinazzi? Put in the chat right now, and I will read out your comment. Right, let's take a look. Sebastian Leclerc has had more points now than Ericsson has had for 5 seasons. Yes, I think that is true. That, I guess you could say from Ericsson's point of view, is a bit bad, but I think it's pretty clear. It was pretty clear at the start of the season, even though Leclerc wasn't doing that well, that Leclerc had way more talent than Marcus Ericsson, to be honest. Gina, imagine if Ericsson beats Alonso in IndyCar. We'll have to see if Alonso does go to America, but if he did, that'd be incredible. It really would. Reza, Marcus will finish in the top 5 in IndyCar next year, in my opinion. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he finished top 5 I wouldn't be surprised at all. Warwick Ball, if you were the FIA, if you were in the FIA, what regulations would you get rid of? I'd make a change to the gearbox and engine regulations in terms of how many times you're allowed to change them during a season. I would make it a lot more relaxed. I wouldn't have it be you're only allowed, I think, is it 3 power units during a season? That is ridiculous. I would have it be 10 power units and probably 10 gearboxes as well. I don't like how they're trying to force teams to back off reliability wise with these power units and gearboxes. I think the teams should be allowed to push more. I just don't like that rule at all. Tonka Toy Truck can't touch the cost saving rules. No, you just can't really. Ronan Brady Ericsson should never have got the seat in 2015. Gutierrez and Verline deserved it more. Well, Verline wasn't really known in 2015. Gutierrez, I don't like Gutierrez. He's just another pay driver, to be honest. I think Ericsson deserved the seat. I don't think he deserved the seat after 2016. But, you know, he stayed for 2016 and 2017. But what he did in 2018, I think, earned him enough of a seat for 2019. Oh, sorry, I meant Suttil, not Verline. Okay. Suttil, I don't think Suttil did. I think Suttil had come to the end of his F1 career and was basically done. I don't think Suttil deserved to stay. Suttil didn't do bad in what was a horrible Sauber car in 2014, but he did not deserve to stay, not at all. Scuderia D, Ericsson will do good, and pass drivers that weren't good in F1 is great great at IndyCar. Okay. Is Alonso going to IndyCar? That's Sebastian. I don't know. My best bet right now is he's probably going to sign up for another WEC season. I think 2019 and 2020. That's my best bet because, you know, Honda, who have a big hand in IndyCar, they basically don't want to house Fernando Alonso because of the comments Alonso has had towards Honda in 2015, 2016 and 2017. That doesn't mean that he will never race in IndyCar. That there is a chance for sure, but right now, most likely, I think Fernando Alonso is going to sign up for another season. I think it's called Super Season in WEC. He'll sign up for the 2019/2020 WEC season. The 2018-2019 season comes to a close at Le Mans next year. So, yeah, don't be surprised if he continues into 2020, racing for the Toyota WEC team. Right, I'll just read out a couple more comments, then I will move on to our next story. Francisco, I think it's fair to say that Leclerc is better than Ericsson this year, but compare the total points is unfair because Sauber was crap in the past seasons. Yeah, that's true, but, you know, there you go. You have to show them because, well, they're there for everyone to see. I think 18 points in 5 seasons, whether you're driving a lower midfield car or an upper midfield car, is not really good enough. We have to put it this way. The Sauber car was bad in 2016 and 2017, but it was not, like Manor in 2015, where it was so far off the midfield and right at the back that they couldn't ever hope to score a point. Sauber did score points in 2016 and 2017. It wasn't impossible. So, yeah, the Sauber, again, it was a bad car, but it wasn't one of the worst cars we've ever seen. It was mostly, the 2017 Sauber was mostly bad because they had a year-old Ferrari power unit. That definitely did not help them, especially in the last half of 2017. But I think we'll move on from Marcus Ericsson, guys, and go on to our next topic, which is Brendan Hartley, who has come out and said that he's had to stand up for himself during when people have been criticising him for his driving in 2018. Now, I do have something to say about this, as I'm just going to show it now. His stats for 2018. Now, if you look at his best race result and best qualifying result, you wouldn't think that Hartley had a bad season. Best race result, P9, quite good. Qualifying result, or best qualifying result, P6, very good in Suzuka, even though he was a bit lucky with the conditions. But you can see there, 4 points all season and only 3 points finishes. Now, Brendan can say, you know, maybe the criticism is unfair. And yes, he does have to stand up for himself and kind of show people that he's better than people claim. But at the end of the day, he just has not been anywhere near good enough to earn himself a seat for 2019. He could stay at Toro Rosso. There's definitely a chance he could, but I don't think necessarily Brendan will deserve it. I don't think he really will. And after what he said in Mexico, where he said after practice, where he was so good that the new updates for his car were brilliant, and that's why he was so fast, and then went on to have an awful qualifying race where I think he qualified 14th and finished in 14th. He just hasn't been good enough. He has had a couple unlucky moments. For example, Shanghai, where his teammate crashed into him. Silverstone, where he had a suspension failure in practice 3 and then did not get to do qualifying or the Grand Prix. That was very unfortunate. But if you look at the season, he just overall has not been good enough. Has not been good enough. The key points for me are Baku, where he almost killed his teammate, to be honest. You have Spain, where his mistake caused him to miss qualifying and start from the back. There's been plenty of races where he just has been so slow and knocked out of Q1 when the car should be easily in Q2 or even Q3. For example, Bahrain. Pierre Gasly, pretty much all weekend in Bahrain, was at the front of the midfield, and Brendan Hartley, I think in the race, ended up finishing in 17th. And he qualified only P11 when Gasly... where did Gasly qualify? I think Gasly qualified in 6th and then of course finished in 4th. That just shows you that Brendan has not been good enough. And I guess you could say criticism of him saying he has to stand up for himself is the best way for me of you standing up for yourself against your criticism is performing on the track. And he hasn't done that. The criticism he's getting, say, right now, or say maybe even a few races ago, is not as bad as it was around Monaco and Canada, where we literally thought he was going to be replaced only 7 races into the season by a Pascal Wehrlein or someone else. That's when the criticism got to its absolute worst, and I think was a bit unfair at the time because we didn't get to see at the time if he would actually improve. But as we are now, 2 races away from the end of 2018, he has improved, but just not enough. Not enough. And I think, again, if Brendan wanted to properly stand up for himself against the criticism, perform on track consistently. That's how you do it. That is how you're going to do it. You're not going to, do it in the media by responding or snapping back. You have to do it on track against your midfield competitors. It's as simple as that. But guys, what do you think about Brendan Hartley's comments? Do you think, like me, the only way he can stand up against the criticism is by performing on track. And overall, do you think he has been good enough in 2018 to earn a seat for 2019? I don't think he has. I really don't think he has. I do like Brendan. He's probably one of, if not the nicest guy in the paddock. But as they say, nice guys finish last. So yeah, let me know, guys, in the comments, and I will read out your comments and answer any questions about Hartley in 2018. Alright, let's take a look, shall we? Hartley must be kicked out already. Just looking at some more comments. Sebastian, I think he has been told he is getting replaced. He has been real salty these last races. He didn't sound that salty though after Suzuka. He sounded very proud of himself and his team. So I don't know what's going on. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if Hartley was at Toro Rosso for 2019, only because Red Bull don't have any other options for that second seat. That's the only real reason. Niblo want him to stay, but wouldn't complain if he got the boot. Yep, absolutely. In terms of just the guy he is, I would like him to stay, but again, nice guys finish last. So there you go. Connor Chapman, he has had some bad luck though. Wasn't it Stroll who took him out in Canada? Yep, it was. And Hartley did have a good qualifying. He qualified, was it 13th or 12th? I think at that race. Yeah, that was unlucky, but I only think he's been unlucky this season at most for 25% of the races. The rest of the races, it's been down to him to get the results, and he just hasn't. Has not been anywhere near as good as Pierre Gasly. Not even close. Niblo Galeo getting a drive would be a joke. He is awful. He is absolutely awful, guys. Sean Galeo would be the worst driver on the grid. Even worse than Lance Stroll if Galeo got on the grid. Galeo is so bad. He is at best a midfield driver in F2. If you're going to take a driver from F2, it needs to be someone at the front, not, you know, someone who at best is a midfield driver or even lower than that. If he was good, he will make his own luck. That's a great point from Halam899. People can say, you know, certain drivers get lucky, but... And they used to say that a lot about, I think, Michael Schumacher. You know, Michael Schumacher, some people would say, oh, he gets lucky with this or that. But if you look at him, I'm not comparing Michael Schumacher and Brendan Hartley, but if you look at Michael with his lucky moments, he had to be in certain positions to capitalise. So, as Halam899 said, you have to make your own luck. Flores, I think it's... Yeah, Flores. In F2, he gets outperformed by his teammate every race. I don't know who his teammate is, but I'm pretty sure it's not an amazing driver, so... Yeah. NM Ahmed is even better than him. Yep. There's plenty of drivers better than Sean Galeo. Plenty of drivers. Just let me look for a couple final comments before we go on to our next story, which if you are Dutch or from Vietnam will get you pretty excited. Andrew Drury, and this pretty much sums up Brendan Hartley. At Suzuka, and he makes the point, Brendan qualified 6th and finished 13th. So there you go. That pretty much describes Brendan's F1 career. There's been promise, small glimpses, but overall, just not good enough. Really not good enough. Ronald Hartley may stay. Let's see how he does against the Torpedo. well, in their only race together as teammates, I know it was Hartley's first race, and Kvyat did do most of 2017, but Kvyat did quite comfortably beat Brendan during that weekend. So if they were teammates, I think Kvyat would definitely beat Brendan. Kvyat is not a bad driver. On his day, Kvyat is, I would say, an upper midfield driver on his day. But again, like a Grosjean or a Magnussen, you don't really know when their day is going to come. And Niblo says Kvyat would destroy him. Absolutely, Kvyat would absolutely destroy him. But we'll move on from Brendan Hartley and go on to our next story, which is to do with the possibility of a Grand Prix in Holland and Vietnam. The first one, of course, is Zandvoort. This is a picture of the track, and it looks as though, from rumours or news this week, that Holland has been offered a race at Zandvoort for 2020. Now, I desperately want a Grand Prix in Holland, because with the Verstappen army, this Grand Prix will be one of the best atmospheres during the season. It'll be up there with Mexico, Silverstone, Monza. It'll be one of the best races of the year in terms of atmosphere. When it comes to the racing, I don't think it's going to be the best track, to be honest, because it's a very tight track, and the only real passing opportunity is the pit straight down into turn 1. But after that, because of how tight it is, there's no real chance to actually get past. But again, in terms of atmosphere, it'd be great to have a race here. It really would. I don't want it to be Assen, because Assen, I just don't think would be as good of a location as Zandvoort. So I think we should have a Grand Prix here. And I know I do have quite a few Dutch fans and people who subscribe to the channel. So this is good news for you guys. Really good news. And yeah, if you can get yourself out to a Dutch Grand Prix for 2020, if it does happen, then I think you should, because the atmosphere is going to be immense, to say the least. And as well, Vietnam, it looks as though, is basically confirmed for 2020. So that is going to take the calendar up to, it's 21 races for next year. So with Zandvoort and Vietnam, that goes up to 23. There's rumours that Miami is going to be on the calendar for 2020. I don't think it will be. I think Miami, if it is on the calendar in the next 5 years, it'll probably be on the calendar in 2022 or 2023. But yeah, with Zandvoort and Vietnam, that takes the calendar up to 23 races. But here is the key point. Silverstone has a contract for F1 races until the end of 2019, meaning that if Silverstone and Liberty don't strike out a deal, next year's British Grand Prix might be, maybe not the last British Grand Prix at Silverstone, but definitely for maybe a few years, the last British Grand Prix at Silverstone. So there is a chance. I don't think the British Grand Prix will go away, and I think Silverstone will remain on the calendar, because we've had this before. If you remember back to 2010, there was a possibility that, and it was basically confirmed at the time, that Silverstone was booted off the calendar for Donington to hold the British Grand Prix. But then Donington just didn't have the resources or the infrastructure to hold a British Grand Prix, and Silverstone did. So they kept it at Silverstone. But if they don't strike out a deal, then I think Silverstone will be replaced by 2 races in Zandvoort and Vietnam. And we might not have a British Grand Prix for 2020. Again, I don't think that will happen. I think the British Grand Prix will be on the calendar still, but you never know. You never know. But guys, what do you think about this? Do you think that there will be a Dutch and Vietnamese, let me just make sure I say that right, Vietnamese Grand Prix? And do you think that Silverstone will still be on the F1 calendar from 2020 onwards. I think it will, but let's see what you guys think in the chat. Warwick Bull, going to Holland makes perfect sense, and what race should it replace? Again, if Silverstone goes off the calendar, I think it'll be replacing that. But in terms of what race it should replace, in an ideal world, it should replace Russia on the calendar. But realistically, I don't see what race it would replace. I think it would just be adding to the races we already have. Niblo says there Germany should be staying next year. The attendance was great. Yeah, the attendance was, I think, the best it's been in quite a while at Hockenheim. So I think the German Grand Prix is going to be more regular on the calendar from now on, for sure. Ronan Brady, we need more European Grand Prix. They could do that. They could do that. They did have a European, or they used to have the European Grand Prix, I think in the 80s and once in the 90s in England. They had a couple at Brands Hatch, which is a track about an hour or 2 hours south of Silverstone, and then they had the '93 European Grand Prix, very famous, for Ayrton Senna's amazing first lap at Donington Park. So maybe we could get a race in England or the UK that way, but yeah, I think the European Grand Prix is something that used to be a regular thing on the calendar, but it just hasn't been in the last few years. When Baku came onto the calendar, the first Baku race was the European Grand Prix, but then that went away. Mr. Big Ears says lose France. I'd give France another chance, to be honest, because I think that track does have the potential with the right aerodynamics or cars. I do think it has the potential to be a good track. I think it does. Francisco, oh come on, this sucks so bad. I do want new tracks, but not at the cost of Silverstone or Hockenheim, which are two of my favourite tracks. Well, with the way it's going, I think the calendar is just going to increase in terms of races. Again, if Silverstone and Hockenheim stay on the calendar for 2020, and if Miami gets added to Zandvoort and Vietnam coming to the calendar, we could have 24 races in 2020. I don't think that'll be the case. I think one race will come off. It might be Baku. That'd be a shame, but I think it might be Baku. But don't be surprised if the calendar goes up to at least 23 races for 2020. I think that's definitely a possibility. Again, though, if Silverstone stays on the calendar. Jerome Zandvoort is designed by the same guy that designed Suzuka. His name is, I'm not going to pronounce that because I'll absolutely butcher that name. He also designed Zolder. That's another track in Holland, I believe, or Belgium. I think it is Belgium. Hockenheim Stadium section and some more. Okay. Zandvoort is a very old style track for sure. Just the way it looks and the runoff areas, it's a very old style track. That is for sure. Just looking at some other comments here. Germany was good, but not what it was. A Dutch Grand Prix will make it lower. If they go to 23 races a year from RD, there needs to be more engines and gearboxes available. Absolutely. If they want to keep like they have it right now, then if it goes up to 23 races, they're going to have to increase it to 4 power units per season or 5. They absolutely have to. They can't keep it at 3 and then add another 5 races or 2 races or 3 races to the calendar. That's just not going to be possible. Ronan Brady, maybe Brazil might drop off. I don't think Brazil will, because I think I saw news the other day or the other week that I think Brazil now has the Grand Prix for free for the next 3 years. They don't have to pay a fee, I think. Yeah, I think that's yeah, I think Niblo just said in the chat, I don't think Brazil or the promoters or whoever owns the track has to pay for the race for the next 3 or 4 years. So I don't think that's going to happen. Ronan Brady calling Azerbaijan as the European Grand Prix is a joke. Let me just get through some comments here. There's plenty of comments on this. Ronan Brady, I want to keep Baku. I want to keep it. The only tracks I'll get rid of in an ideal world would be Russia, Abu Dhabi, and that's it. And then, replacing with Zandvoort and Vietnam, if you want those 2 races on the calendar. But again, those 2 races are not going to come off the calendar. No problem, JB, who's just joined. Right, let me just read one more and then I will move on to our next story, which features Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso. Let me just... Ben McCarthy, Singapore. Mind you, the drivers love the track. I don't think Singapore should, even though it doesn't produce the greatest racing. From a visual standpoint, it's an amazing track to look at, and the drivers love that track. So, yeah, I think Singapore is going to stay for a very long time. By the way, thank you to the almost 70 people watching this live. Just to say, if you are new to the channel, we do this every weekend where there is not an F1 race. This week in F1. So, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe on the bottom right of the screen or click on my channel name and go to my channel page and subscribe to the channel so you can keep up to date with me. And of course, hit the notifications bell and subscribe, of course, for more content like this. But I think we'll move on to our next story, which might get, guys, a bit controversial. It just might. And it's about Lewis Hamilton talking about Fernando Alonso and his driver moves during his career. And I think we do need to carefully analyse Hamilton's comments, because it can be confusing as to what Hamilton is really talking about. Hamilton is not really going in depth with what he's saying. He's kind of leaving it out there for interpretation. So let's look at Hamilton's comments. He says, sure, he could have won more championships, but it's not like he didn't have the chance. It just depends on making the right decisions outside the cockpit. If you think like he did, that you control the driver market, you can't be surprised when you end up without something in your hands, because Seb and I were also on the market. Now, again, those comments, and there's a couple quotes in there which could be a bit confusing as to what his point is and what point he's trying to make, but this is how I interpret it as. When it comes to he could have won more championships, but it's not like he didn't have the chance, I think what he's trying to say is that he didn't make, the best career moves. That's not really, a massively new thing to us. It's pretty clear that Fernando has had poor advice and also has made poor decisions as to choosing what team he goes to. But I think with what he's saying, it's kind of revealed what he's trying to say in that last quote, because Seb and I were also on the market. I believe that Lewis is kind of saying that, say for himself really, maybe Seb as well, that I'm better than Fernando Alonso, and if I'm on the market at the same time, you can't expect you to control the driver market. I think that's what he's trying to say. If I'm wrong about that, then put in the chat if I'm wrong about that, but I think that's what he's trying to say. I think he's kind of not dissing Fernando or anything like that, but I think he's basically saying, me and Seb are either at the same level or better than Fernando, in his opinion, of course. He had his chances to win championships, but he didn't. And again, he should not have been thinking that he could control the driver market, because him and Seb were on the market at the same time. So, again, it is still confusing as to what he's trying to say. It is very open, for me, open to interpretation. I think he's trying to say, me and Seb are at a similar, if not better level than Fernando, and for him to think that he is the #1 player in the driver market is, well, quite stupid. I think that's what he's trying to say. But guys, what do you think? Do you think that is what Lewis is trying to say, or how do you interpret his comments? How do you interpret his comments? Do you think I'm wrong in how I interpret it, or what's your interpretation? Let's take a look, shall we? Ronald Hamilton is kind of mean. Right. I think we're definitely going to get some interesting comments about this. I can already see some. Rona Brady, I think he's talking about him trying to get his seat in 2015. But Hamilton wasn't on the market then. That's the thing. I think maybe he's sticking up for Vettel because Alonso and Vettel were on the driver market at the same time in 2014. With, of course, Vettel going to Ferrari to replace Fernando, and then Fernando going to McLaren. Again, it's very confusing, his comments. He is very subtle with what he's trying to say. Alonso could have been in the Red Bull from 2010 and up. He could have been in the Red Bull in 2008. But when he left McLaren, after that disastrous year in terms of his relations with people at McLaren, decided to leave. He had a choice of Red Bull, Renault, and I believe as well, I think it might have been Toyota. I might be wrong about that, but I think Toyota were in for him as well. And I think he played it safe and thought, you know what, I'll go back to Renault. You know, they need me and they'll win championships again with me. But they didn't, because after Fernando left Renault went off a cliff in terms of where they were when Fernando was at Renault the first time, just before he left. In 2006, for example, Renault were very, very good and very efficient at winning races. But when he came back to Renault a year and a half, 2 years later, Renault, most of the season in 2008 were kind of like what Renault are, or what Renault have been this season. So, yeah. Just looking at some more comments. There's plenty of comments about this. Great to see. Alaric, I think it is. I think he means the steps he made, especially going from Ferrari to McLaren. This is the thing, though. I can't necessarily blame him for leaving Ferrari when he did, because when he left Ferrari were getting worse, not better. Maybe it was because of the way Fernando was, I don't know, but Ferrari were getting worse, not better. The best car Ferrari produced in Fernando's time at Ferrari was the first car Fernando drove, the 2010 Ferrari. That was the best car he had at the Scuderia. The 2011 car was poor. The 2012 car was, for most of the season, poor. The 2013 car was, I'd say, better than the 2012 and 2011 car, but just not good enough to win a title. And then the 2014 car was so horrifically bad all around. So I don't really blame him for going to, or leaving Ferrari. I think maybe going to McLaren was the wrong choice, not necessarily leaving Ferrari. Maybe he could have gone to Williams, even though Williams wouldn't have afforded his wage. I don't know. I don't know. But again, I can't really blame him for leaving Ferrari. They just weren't getting better at the time. Ferrari in 2014, at best, were the fourth fastest team. At best. That sometimes they were behind McLaren and Force India and were sixth best. That's how bad they were. Hamilton meant Fernando had all the choices but picked wrongly. I think with Fernando, like, it's clear that he did not make the right decisions. I think the decision to go to McLaren in 2015 was definitely the worst, because going in, it was the riskiest decision he made. I don't think his decision going to Renault in 2008 or Ferrari in 2010 or McLaren in 2007 was anywhere near as risky as his move to McLaren in 2015, because in 2015 there was much less of a guarantee that Fernando would win races for that team than there were at Ferrari, his first time at McLaren and his second time at Renault. When it comes to, like, you know, when he left McLaren the first time and went back to Renault, there was no guarantee at the time that Red Bull were going to start winning championships 2 years later. No one could have known that. No one could have known that. And I think he had an offer from Honda as well, who went on to be Brawn and then Mercedes. No one knew that Honda would be a new team the next season and then win the championship. It's easy to say in hindsight, but I think when it comes to that decision in 2008, I don't really blame him for going to Renault, because, again, no one thought Red Bull and Honda, who turned into Brawn and then Mercedes, no one thought they were going to start winning championships or getting on podiums or anything like that. But definitely for me, his decision to go to McLaren in 2015 was his worst, because McLaren had not shown evidence over the past couple seasons before that they were actually going to supply Fernando with what he wanted. Right, I'll try and read a couple more comments. There's been plenty about this. If I have missed your comment, I am very sorry, but there are so many about this. I will try to just to read out the ones I can see and notice. Jerome, Hamilton is clearly saying that the market saw Hamilton and Seb being the better drivers. Yeah, that's how I interpret it as. I think he's trying to say that him and Vettel are either equal or better. On top of that, they were the up-and-coming young guys, being a better prospect for the future for the top teams. Yeah, that could be a point as well. Right, I'll read one more and then I'll go on to our final topic, which is going to promote even more debate, and it is the first part of this title. First part of the title of this video. Right, I'll just read one more. Andrew Drury, he did win races when he returned to Renault. He did. But overall, for his second spell at Renault, the car just, most of the time, was not race winnable. It just wasn't. At best, it was finishing in 4th or 5th place, which is not good enough for, you know, a manufacturer like Renault at the time, or for Fernando Alonso's results. But I think we will move on now to our final story. But guys, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts about that story. And by the way, if I did miss your comments there, remember, if I did, comment on this video in the comments section, and then I will answer it after the stream goes up as a video. So if I've missed your comment, put it in the comments section and I will reply that way. It's a better way to do it, I guess. But we'll move on to, I believe, our final story, which is about Max Verstappen, who has come out and said that he believes, say this year, I think this is what he's trying to say, is that this year he could win the championship in that Mercedes car. Let's get into this. This is definitely going to be controversial. So this is his quote. Of course, he's talking about Lewis Hamilton here and the Mercedes car. He says, of course, he is extremely good, but even Vettel can win in such a car. Ricciardo can also win in such a car, and I can win in such a car. Now, when he says win, I think he's saying winning the title. I think that's what he's saying. And that's how it's been presented as. So, that's what we're going to be analysing here. I think these drivers, could obviously win in the Mercedes car, but winning the championship, that's the controversial part for me. And that's the part we're going to properly analyse. Now, Max Verstappen in 2018, I think mostly has been good. You can see there has 2 race wins, 9 podiums and 216 points. But this is, that stat at the bottom, that is, for me, it's why I don't think, say in 2018, if Max Verstappen was Lewis Hamilton's teammate, that stat at the bottom is why Max this year would not have beaten Lewis. 8 incidents that affected qualifying or race results. That is the spin in the first race, his crash in Bahrain, his crash of Lewis Hamilton in Bahrain in the race, his crashes in China with Vettel, and then his almost crash of Lewis Hamilton, his accident with Daniel Ricciardo in Baku. He did have an incident at the Spanish Grand Prix of Lance Stroll, but it did not affect his race result. Monaco, he could have won that race and probably would have if he didn't crash and push way too hard in practice 3. He also had an incident at the Italian Grand Prix, where even though I think he shouldn't have got a penalty, it's still an incident which cost him what was going to be a very, very good podium. So, for Max, again, very fast driver. He is my favourite driver, by the way, on the grid. I just love watching the guy. He's such an exciting driver, and I think if he gets in the right car, then depending on who his teammate is, I think Max will at least go for the championship. I really think Max will be good, or very, very good in the future. But again, Max is very quick. For most of 2018, he has been good. But those 8 incidents is why Max right now is not ready to win a championship. If he was against Lewis Hamilton in the same car, Hamilton would beat him because, one, I believe Hamilton is a better driver in qualifying, only just, but I think he is a better qualifying driver, and Hamilton makes less mistakes and is more consistent than Max. That's the key point. Hamilton is more consistent than Max, but of course, Max is only 21 years old. Lewis Hamilton wasn't even in the sport at 21 years old. I think Lewis Hamilton was 22 when he did his first race. So, of course, Max is still young and has a lot to learn, and he definitely does have a lot to learn. But I don't think that Max or Vettel or Ricciardo in the same car this season would beat Lewis Hamilton. I don't think it would happen. It would be close between Max and Lewis, and I actually think Max probably would challenge Hamilton the most out of probably, maybe not all of the drivers, but say out of the drivers in the top teams, Bottas, Verstappen, Vettel, Raikkonen and Ricciardo. Out of those 5, I think Verstappen would definitely challenge Hamilton the most, but I think Lewis would beat all of them. I think that would be the case because, again, Lewis is just more consistent. That's the difference, and that is why Lewis has beaten Sebastian Vettel in 2018. Even though Lewis, is faster than Vettel qualifying-wise, when it comes to races and when it comes to wheel-to-wheel racing and just getting past people and not cracking under pressure, Lewis's consistency compared to Vettel's inconsistency is why Lewis has won the championship. But guys, what do you think about that? Could Max Verstappen right now against Lewis Hamilton head to head beat him for the World Championship. It's as simple as that. Do you think he can, or do you think he could not? In my opinion, he is not ready yet to beat a guy like Lewis Hamilton, because Hamilton is just, he's quick enough and consistent enough to beat Max over the course of a season. But if you disagree, put in the comments below and I will read it out for the remaining few minutes of this stream. Let's take a look. Here we go. I'm sure there will be plenty of comments about this. A couple of people saying no. Ben McCarthy, his mistake in qualifying in the US. Yeah, that's another mistake I forgot to remember. That's another mistake. So that'll be 9 incidents that affected qualifying and race result. Alaric, it will never happen. It will never happen, but again, it's, you know, fun to theorise what would happen. But again, if they were teammates, do you think this year Max would have beaten Lewis? That's the question. I don't think he would have. Down to inconsistency. Right. Let's go through this. There's plenty of comments about this. Tonka Toy Truck, can't wait to see how Gasly matches up with Max. Most likely Gasly will be beaten quite handsomely by Max. Just looking. Everton, Max will not win a championship while Lewis is still an F1 driver. And Max is way too hot-headed. Yeah, I agree with that. Francisco, I still don't think Max is a top 3 driver due to his inconsistent mistakes. Or due to his consistent mistakes. But he will get there. I think right now he is probably top 3 on the grid. But again, it changes based on who's performing well and who, you know, dips in form. Like, Max was definitely not top 3 on the grid during the first 6 races of this season. No way. Not even top 5 during the first 6 races of this season. But after that, has been very, very good. Let me just look. Max, in some ways, is quick, but not all round better than Lewis. That's pretty much what I'm saying. All around, I don't think Max would have enough to beat Lewis Hamilton. Connor Chapman, I think them together would make Mercedes seriously nervous. It would. Those two would definitely have a crash. Not even a doubt about it. Not even a doubt about it. RD, Max will learn from his mistakes made this season. In a few seasons' time, he will be ready. Yeah, I think he'll be ready. I think he'll probably be ready by... In terms of being fully consistent and putting in consistently great performances, give it until, say, when he's 25 years old. I know, you know, he's been in F1 since he's 17, but you have to realise that whether he's 17 years old or 21 years old, people at that age, doesn't matter what you do, still make silly, immature mistakes. You need to wait until he gets to around 25 years old. Look at Lewis Hamilton. Even though Hamilton was so good in his first couple seasons, he made way more mistakes then than he does now. So, there you go. Have Max face off Vettel. Those two would crash about 5 or 6 times during a season. I think Max would beat Sebastian, though, in the same team. I think Sebastian would not be able to deal with Max's pace and aggression. I don't think he would be able to. Max needs mentors other than his dad at this stage. Yeah, I agree. Jerome says, no, the question is not about this year. The comment or the statement is about the future. Well, no, the question I'm putting out there is, would he win the title this year against Lewis Hamilton in the same car? Because that's pretty much what he's saying. And also with Ricciardo and Vettel, which I also think Hamilton would beat them. So, Toro Loco, I hope Ricciardo gets one before Max. I don't think Ricciardo honestly will ever win a championship. I'd love to see it because I think he kind of deserves it for his perseverance. It would be nice to see Ricciardo at Mercedes. It would, but realistically now, because he's gone to Renault, I don't think that's going to happen. Unless he puts in amazing performances and Mercedes don't keep Bottas or put Ocon in Bottas's place. I don't see how Ricciardo goes to Mercedes. I'll be honest, I think Ricciardo going to Ferrari is a lot more likely than Ricciardo going to the Silver Arrows. I'm just looking at... I'm just trying to include all of your comments, guys. It's been a very good video this has. So thank you very much. Ronan Brady Button, who, let's not forget, outscored him at McLaren over 3 years. True, but Lewis is way better now than he was then. I think we have to remember that. Button, during that time, was at his best. That was when Jensen was at his absolute prime. Lewis was not anywhere close to his prime during those 3 seasons. If Lewis was like he is now, back then, Lewis would have won probably a couple of championships in that time. Say 2010 and 2012. But again, Lewis was kind of like Max now. Just not mature enough and making too many silly mistakes. Prussia, no one will beat Hamilton until 2021. He is on a roll and won't be stopped. I'll be honest, I think it might play out the same as it did for Schumacher and Ferrari. I think Hamilton and Mercedes, that they're not going to be stopped unless there comes along a regulation change that seriously throws Mercedes off and puts them down the field. I don't see how they can be stopped. I don't see it. I really don't see it. Lewis is too good. Mercedes are the best team in F1 and one of the best teams in sport, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, they're a very scary partnership, Lewis, Hamilton and Mercedes, and I think people now need to look at Hamilton and Mercedes like people look at the Schumacher, Jean Todt, Ross Brawn and Ferrari years. It's been that good for Lewis. Of course, he lost to Rosberg in 2016, but has won 4 out of the last 5 titles for Mercedes. And even in the last couple of years where the team and the driver have been put under a lot more pressure from Ferrari, who have just got better and better over the last 3 or 4 years, they still come out on top. Andrew Jury, even after the 2021 rule changes, Mercedes will still definitely be in the championship battle. I don't think Mercedes will ever not be in the battle for the title. Of course, you know, eventually they won't be, but realistically, they're going to be a team like Ferrari where they're always, even when they're not doing great, they're going to be at least there or thereabouts at the end of the season, even if they don't have the best car. And I think we just have to say as well for Mercedes, you have to remember, Mercedes as a works team have not been in the sport very long. They were a works team for 2 years in the 50s, 54 and 55, and were very successful. And then have been back in the sport since 2010. And just look at the success they've had as a works team in such a short amount of time. If they had not pulled out of F1 and motorsport in 55 because of that horrible crash at Le Mans, Mercedes might have been the most successful and famous team of all time before Ferrari. They really could have. No, Lewis won because he didn't make mistakes. Lewis, I think this is Corolla. Lewis won because he was the most consistent. Max isn't there yet, but he will. I absolutely agree. Again, Max, he needs more time. He's not quite there yet. On his day, Max can beat anyone. But again, there's that still 20 or 25% of the season where he'll have a silly accident or make a silly mistake and retire from a race when he really should not do. Mr. Big Ears, how would Lewis do in a Red Bull? I think he would do better than what Max and Ricciardo have done this season. But Lewis definitely would not have won the championship. I think Lewis would probably be, say, 4th in the championship. Because let's be honest, the Red Bull is just not good enough, reliability and pace-wise, all around, to win the title. It just is not. Right, I'm just trying to read out as many as I can, because I just want to include all your comments. You've been so great today, guys, for this stream. Lewis could have been stopped this year already, and next year Ferrari will still be fast and Red Bull is coming. Lewis won because of mistakes, not because he drove faster. I disagree. Lewis, in the second half of the season, that's when you need to perform if you're going to win a championship, Lewis did drive faster. And yes, he didn't make mistakes and others did, but that's part of the game. If you make mistakes and it gets to the point where it's too many mistakes, then you don't deserve to win the championship. For Max, it's mental, not skill. That's where he can improve. Absolutely. Skill-wise, I think he's up there, talent-wise, with Hamilton and even Senna and Schumacher. I really think that. And I've thought that since 2015 when I saw the guy for the first few races of his career. I thought this guy could be, if he gets in the right car, could go down as one of the greatest drivers of all time. And talent-wise, he does have the talent to do so. Tonka Toy Truck, Lewis, the master of risk management. Absolutely. Right, let me just read out a few more comments. Jerome, Lewis or Hamilton repeatedly said, "I can't pass this guy," about Max in several occasions. He only said that, I think, once. I think it was Australia 2017. So I don't think it was multiple occasions, but he did on that occasion. Just look. Ronan Brady says, Max is one of the best. I thought the same as you in 2015. You could just see it. You know, at that age, to be that good in this sport at 17. I'm sorry, how anyone can deny that this guy could be one of the greats in the future after what he's done so far in his career. I think Max is, in terms of youngest race winners, is in the top 5. He's in the top 5 youngest race winners. So, you know, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th. Lewis Hamilton, for example, who definitely for me is a top 5 driver of all time, was not even in the sport until 22. Max has been in the sport since 17 and already has 5, I think it's 5 race wins. And a couple of them have been dominant wins. So I cannot wait to see what Max can do in the future. Right, I'm going to read out a couple more and then I will come to the end of this stream. Again, thank you guys so much for coming along. And as well, if you are new to the channel, we do this every weekend where there's not a race. So I'll be doing this plenty in the winter. Don't forget to subscribe at the bottom right of the screen, or click on my channel name, go to my channel page and subscribe to the channel. That's UK Strack. Seb had the equipment but simply didn't deliver. Look at lost points this season. I think he says hashtag German Grand Prix. Yep. I think Vettel came out, and maybe I should have included this in this episode, but Vettel did come out and say that at no point did Ferrari have a dominant car. I will disagree with that a bit. They didn't have a dominant car. Say, you know, when they were fastest, they weren't always dominant, but there were races where they were. Bahrain, China, kind of at Monza, you know, with the gap in qualifying. So I think that's kind of just him throwing excuses out there. And for Vettel as well, he also came out and said, sorry, that Singapore was the key turning point in the championship, not Hockenheim. That clearly is a man in denial. That is literally the definition of denial. He's basically acting like it didn't happen. UK Strack, Honda will decide this debate. Hopefully they do. Can't wait for Verstappen and Leclerc to be teammates. That says, Andrew Drury said that. Right, I will. Was that one of Seb's best jokes? Daniel Crawford, I agree. Seb is in denial. It's crazy. Seb, this is another fault of Seb, which I will get into in a video I'm going to do in the winter about Sebastian Vettel. Sebastian has this system where he makes a mistake and then goes into full, I don't know, damage control or denial mode. I don't know what it is, but he denies his own mistakes a lot. He's done it with crashes he's made, you know, with the whole Max Verstappen crash in Suzuka. Clearly his fault, but somehow presented it to be Max's fault, clearly. He does it a lot. We'll get onto that more in the winter time. And Ben McCarthy says, Turkey 2010. Exactly. That was not Webber's fault. Not at all. You made a video on his denial, didn't you? That's from Ronan Brady. Yeah, I think on my old channel I did touch on it slightly when I did a season review on him for 2017. But with this video I've got planned for the winter, we're going to go a lot deeper into that and just his career in general and my thoughts on him. Right. The last comment is Motorsport Cube. I reckon we will see a Leclerc versus Hamilton and possibly versus Verstappen fight for the championship next season. Don't forget, Sebastian Vettel. I know the end of 2018 has been so bad for him, but we can't deny his talent. He will be in there somewhere. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how he deals with Charles Leclerc. Hopefully, he turns up this time in 2019. But we'll move on from that and now come to the end of this video. If you want to know what the next two videos are on the channel, then check this out. These are the next two videos. Now, I said after my race review, or at the end of my race review, I'm thinking of doing an extra video during this break between Mexico and Brazil. And on Monday, there you go. That is the extra video. It's a video on Kimi Räikkönen. I won't get into what exactly it's about, but tomorrow between 4 and 5 PM UK time will be a video on Kimi Räikkönen. Then on Tuesday will be part 2 to the Ferrari battery issue explained video, which I uploaded about 3 weeks ago or a month ago. I will do a part 2 to that because there has been an update to that story and maybe why we kind of overplayed this whole battery thing because of some updates on what they've been doing with their aerodynamics, and also get into how Sebastian Vettel's mistakes have cost Ferrari with this, I guess, innovation on their power unit. So, yeah, there you go, guys. And as well, on Thursday will be the Brazilian Grand Prix preview for 2018. And there's an update for you guys I need to let you know of. The race reviews from now on, starting from the race review for Brazil, when I do them live, they will not be at 4 PM UK time. They will now be instead at 6 PM UK time, because I know you guys, you know, at that time in Europe or the UK, it is hard for you guys to get home to check out the stream because you're either at school, college, university, work, whatever. So I'm going to put it on 2 hours later so you guys have a better chance of making the stream. And I think you definitely should have a better chance of making the stream with me putting it at 6 PM. So yeah, from now on, 6 PM UK time on a Monday after a race will be a live hour-and-a-half race review. But guys, that is it for this stream. Thank you very much for coming along. It has been fantastic as always. Just to let you guys know, we do this every weekend where there is not a race, so don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. On the bottom right of the screen, you can subscribe there, or click on my channel name and go to my channel page and subscribe to the channel as well. Don't forget to like this video, comment down below what you thought of this video, and if I did miss your question or comment about a couple of topics, with Hamilton and Alonso or Verstappen and Hamilton, put it in the comment section and I will reply to it. I guarantee you I will get round to replying to it. As well, don't forget to join our Discord server. We are close to 100 people in that server. It would be great to have you in the community. And as well, if you want to get notifications for my videos, Discord is the best way. It is absolutely the best way. So get into the server, and again, the best way to get notifications is that server, so you should catch more of my videos. As well, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Chaz6110. That is a great way, that Twitter account, of keeping up to date with me, and if there isn't a video or a video is delayed, then I normally update you guys on Twitter as to what is going on. And as well, don't forget to check out my website, chazrhd.com. Again, a great way to keep up to date with me on this channel. But guys, thank you very much for coming along. Has been great as always. And until the next video, which is tomorrow, to do with Kimi Räikkönen, I'll see you all then. But until the next live stream, which will be the practice review for the Brazilian Grand Prix on Friday evening here in the UK, I will see all of you then.